Welcome to episode 20 of Smitty's Endurance Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Smith. I'd like to welcome onto the show today, Wes Dean. Wes has risen through the ranks of marathon canoe racing. This past year, he finished second place in the Ausable River Canoe Marathon with partner Weston Willoughby. There is no doubt that Wes will be in the mix for that top spot in any race he enters for years to come. Wes, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, no problem, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So Wes, if you would just, start by talking to us a bit about where you live, maybe a bit about your family and your upbringing.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm a local boy, born and raised in Grayling. Went to Grayling High School. Youngest of three brothers. First generation paddler. I was the first one to do it in my family. But yeah, born and raised in Northern Michigan. Went to school down at University of Michigan. Then moved back home for a year. Decided I wanted to go to physician assistant school. So just recently finished up with that in the last year or so. I was down in Columbus, Ohio, going to school down there for that. And then recently took a job up here back in Northern Michigan. So glad to be back home.
Awesome. Wes, are you living in Grayling right now, or?
Yep. I'm not too proud to say it. I'm living with my parents at the moment.
Yeah.
I work pretty close by. So yeah, it was a good move for me to live with them for a little bit, save some money.
Right on. So Wes, what sports did you play growing up? I mean, because I know you started paddling early, but did you play a few other sports, kind of in your youth and even in high school?
Yeah, so I did the classic like high school football, basketball. I was the youngest of four brothers, like I said. So, they were all big into football and basketball. So it was kind of, it's just kind of what I did, So yeah, I did those. I liked them and I enjoyed it. It was definitely a lot of fun. I had some good memories, but I don't know that I was necessarily like super passionate about them. It was kind of just like what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into paddling back when I was like, first of all, just, growing up in Grayling, watching the marathon every year. So it was like the coolest thing, like Christmas in July.
Right.
But I actually started paddling myself when I was about 11 or 12. There's this aluminum canoe race in Grayling. It goes right in town down to Burton's Landing, first checkpoint of the marathon. And I did it with one of my buddies, Levi Cornelli, who, he's done a couple marathons himself. But yeah, we just entered that one year, and all my brothers had done it in the past and stuff. And it was kind of like a funny little joke. They always did pretty bad, and I think, got last or pretty close to it. So we were like joking around that there was like a curse, with our family. But so yeah, I did it with him, and we actually ended up winning it the first year, and we set an age division record for the 11 and 12-year-olds.
Wow.
So it was like, super cool, super exciting. And, just like that, it was like, canoe racing is awesome. So then the next couple of years after that, we had so much fun with it. The first year we decided to just keep doing it. And we did that like 4 or 5 years in a row. And by the time that fifth year came around, I was 15 years old, and the next year I was going to be 16. And I remember thinking like, okay, like this is pretty fun. I think I kind of want to do, the big race, do the marathon the next year. So, obviously like I told my parents that, and they were like, yeah, okay. Because a lot of people, right around July and stuff, a lot of people are saying like they're going to do the marathon next year.
Sure.
And that's kind of what they thought, and to be honest, is probably a totally valid thought. But they're kind of like, we'll see. So I talked with one of my brothers about it, and, he was like kind of in on it too. And we were like, okay, like let's go half and half on a boat. And we ended up buying one. I think we bought it like that fall. We got like a pretty nice used boat. And then that next spring came around, and it was like, okay, like, if we're doing this, like it's, we got to start paddling and stuff. So we actually didn't really start until like April or May. Actually, I think it was early May, but yeah, we started paddling, and we did a couple of races that year, and we did end up racing the marathon, and the rest is history, I guess. It's kind of hooked from that point.
Yeah, awesome. So Wes, how that first marathon, how did that go for you?
Um, well, we finished, so I would say overall it went pretty well. We finished 55th place. And going into it, like we did put in the work and stuff, so we were kind of hoping we were going to finish, but we really didn't know. We didn't know too much what we were doing. We were pretty slow. And even like the weeks before the race, like we were still flipping over, and even in flat water. I remember we did a run like 2 weeks before the marathon, and we were flipping in deep water for like no reason. Just that's how inexperienced we were.
Sure.
First like town to Mayo we actually started at Burton's in a training run, and it took like 7 hours starting from Burton's. So we were right at the cutoff time, and we started, basically 8 miles ahead.
Right.
But so yeah, like we were hopeful we were going to finish, but we weren't really sure. And we went into that race, pretty nervous for sure. But yeah, I mean, we started out pretty slow. I think we were in like 78th place in Burton's, and we were back there for a while, so it wasn't looking very good. But by the time we hit Mayo, we were feeling a lot better, getting a little bit ahead of the cutoff times, and we actually went from high 70s to I think all the way down to about 51st place. So we passed a lot of boats, and we were just feeling good. A lot of them passed us back eventually, but yeah, second half of the race wasn't super great, but we finished, and that was pretty much our only goal, just to cross the finish line.
Sure. So Wes, I want to talk to you a bit about, that progression from when you started until, where you are now. But I guess one thought that comes to my mind is like, the last few years, like at the start of the marathon, do you have thoughts of that first race and appreciate how far you've came?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I talk with some of my other friends like Danny Medina or Danny Paddle, as you might know it.
Yeah.
And like he kind of started where I started too. Like, we were like way back in the pack for the longest time. And it is crazy to think about. Like, we used to be like super pumped that we got like 40th place or something in the marathon. And,
Right.
now we're like more towards the top. So yeah, I definitely think about it all the time. It's kind of funny to look back and think about where you started.
Yeah, that's neat. So Wes, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons, but the little bit that I know about you, I think you're a hard worker, and I'm sure that's a big part of it as far as how you've been able to get better. Talk to us a bit about that. What are some of the different things that you feel that you've done to be able to progress to being towards the top of the sport now?
So I'd say I don't think it's like one thing in particular. It's definitely a lot of things, but
Right.
number one was just, being persistent. It was not a fast climb to get up towards the top.
Right.
I mean, it took, I think it was 7 or 8 years before I got my first top 10. So it took a long time. So just, being persistent, sticking with it, not giving up. And part of that was just, I was having fun the whole time, even, when I wasn't finishing as well. It was always something I looked forward to and enjoyed. So that made it pretty easy to stick with it. But I think probably the first year that I like made like a big jump was probably, I would say maybe like 2016 to 2017. And I remember that fall, like normally I wouldn't do anything after the marathon. I wouldn't really run in the fall. It was more, I just would train during the summer times with paddling and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that off season, I remember thinking like, okay, like I want to start lifting a lot. I want to start running in the fall and pay attention to nutrition and stuff. And I think that was probably when I made my biggest jump, was when I started kind of like training like that year round and made it more of like a lifestyle versus just something I did in the summer.
Yeah. So what about, your actual paddling training? Like, how has that changed from when you first got into the sport to what you've done, the last few years?
I would say it's definitely more structured now. Like, like way back in the day, I don't think there was like too much like rhyme or reason to what I did. It was just, like, oh, you want to do like Town to Wakely today? You want to do Town to Stephens today? Like, just kind of random.
Mhm.
But then I would say once I started doing like, intervals on a set day, that definitely helped a lot. Um, trying to do all the MCRA races definitely helped a lot. I do think that's probably like one of the single best things you can do as a new paddler to just kind of learn the skills and stuff and get used to being around other boats.
Right.
But I don't know. It's tough to say. I don't think I'm doing anything like too like different or too radical from other people. Um, I I'm basically just try and focus on being really consistent. Um, doing stuff throughout the year.
Now, will you paddle quite a bit throughout the winter or cut back a little
A
bit?
little, a little bit. I would probably say I paddle more than most people in the winter. If you get good weather, I would say I'm usually out there about once a week. Um, Sometimes like 2 or 3 times if the weather's good, but I don't really know that that's like super beneficial to tell you the truth. I just enjoy paddling and I think it does kind of help keep the muscle memory a little bit in the winter, but I honestly think you're probably better off cross country skiing or running than you are trying to paddle much throughout the winter.
Yeah. So once you start, rolling come spring, how many hours do you think you put in from, say March through to the marathon?
Um, that's tough. I haven't kept track of like a number in a
Yeah.
long time. Um, I've heard people say like around like 150 is like pretty standard. I couldn't give you a number at all, but I would say from spring to marathon, I'm definitely consistently paddling at least 5 days a week, sometimes six.
Yeah.
And I'm doing pretty standard stuff, race on the weekend, 1 day of intervals during the week, and then, try and sprinkle in a couple like 5, 6 hour runs here and there.
Yeah. Now, Wes, have you done any of the other Triple Crown races yet?
I have. I've done all three of them actually. I've never
Okay.
done them in the same year, but
Yeah.
yeah, I've done them all.
Okay. So yeah, the next thing I kind of want to talk about is maybe go into a couple different memorable race experiences that you've had.
Okay. Well, definitely my first marathon that I talked about,
Yeah.
stands out the most just because it was the first one and it was all new and special. And finishing that was like definitely a huge accomplishment for me. But other than that, some other ones that stick out for me, um, I would probably say 2019. I raced with Kyle Stonehouse that year, and that was probably a special one because I think it was probably the first time where I really did like better than I expected to do.
Okay.
I think my last couple marathons, I think I did probably a little worse than I was hoping to do, and that was the first one where like it seemed like everything just went smooth, everything went pretty much perfect, and we got sixth place, and I was kind of expecting to finish maybe like 10th or 11th or something. So yeah, that one definitely stands out. And then probably some recency bias, but uh, this year's marathon was pretty cool. My best finish, first time being on the podium, so it's a pretty special one for me.
Yeah, Wes, would you mind diving into that a little bit? This past year's race. I mean, I know, I heard when I had Matt and Jordan on here, they kind of talked about those first couple hours when you guys were together. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind, kind of take us through some of that race and some of the highlights for you guys.
Sure. So the highlight was definitely early on for us. We had a pretty good run of the river. Put in the water first. It's kind of what we were hoping to do, and get out ahead and get a little bit of a lead. We had a lead early, but Jordan and Matt closed it pretty quick. I think probably within like 10 or 15 minutes or so, they were right there. And it was just kind of us two. Not sure how far back third was, but I don't remember really hearing any hups or anything. So I think we were kind of alone pretty early. And town to about Wakely, I would say we definitely pushed it pretty hard. I think we're definitely trying to keep them behind us, but also gap it out on those teams behind us as well. Kind of one memorable thing that happened was right before Wakely, there's a little cut on the right-hand side where it gets real shallow. And two deer like ran right across the river right in front of us, which is like, I've never had that happen. Definitely not in the marathon, but the second deer was like taking its time, and it was like right there in front of us. Like if it would have been any closer, I was about to throw a rudder. But it was pretty funny. But yeah, we definitely went pretty hard early on. I think you kind of have to do that in the marathon. I think there's a lot of time to be had if you go pretty hard early on in that shallow, twisty stuff. So that was definitely the strategy. And then they passed us right at town line where we fed, and which you kind of figured was going to happen. When you feed, like you kind of leapfrog a little bit. But the plan was, they would pass us there and then try and hang right back on their wake. But they turned on the jets, like honestly, like I've never really seen before. Like they dropped us like that. Like I would say probably about 10 minutes after we fed, they were like probably like a minute and a half or 2 minutes up. So they put a lot of time on us really fast. And so that was kind of like, definitely like a low moment for us. And I don't think we probably had our roughest 2 hours right around that time, I would say.
Okay.
So we definitely lost a lot of time fast, which, kind of put it out of reach, I would say.
Yeah.
And then by the time we hit Mayo, started feeling a little bit better. And we did, we kind of knew like, that was like the chance to try and close it. Mayo to McKinley is a really good section to try and put time on people.
Sure.
So we basically just went as hard as we could. And I think by Cummins, which is halfway between Mayo and McKinley, we closed, I want to say it's either 45 seconds or a minute and a half, probably 45 seconds. But we closed a pretty good gap fast on them. So we're like, okay, like, maybe there's a shot. We're feeling pretty good. And then they must have got wind of that because by McKinley, I don't think we gained any more. And then 4001, we didn't gain any more. And then after that, they just kind of slowly put more time on us and we kind of dropped back a little bit. But yeah, I would say towards the end, feeling a little bit rough. Usually I think I feel a little better towards the end, but probably because we went a little harder in the beginning.
Yeah. Now, did your strategy change some, once you kind of figured maybe the race was, the wind was kind of out of your grasp? You guys, how did you change your strategy then?
I would say a little bit, like, probably by like Alcona, we're like, we knew we were like decently far behind and it'd be pretty hard to close that gap. So then it did kind of focus on the team behind us, which was Logan Minor and Chris Eisendorf. And I guess, I don't know, there's not too much of a strategy. It's basically just like, just focus on being smooth, focus on, not having bad lows. And generally I think it's, it's definitely easier to just like kind of maintain a gap if you got a couple minutes on somebody.
Sure.
We just focus on being consistent and not losing like unnecessary time.
Yeah. This is probably kind of a hard question to answer, but if you had to do that race over again, do you think you would change your strategy from the start, or would you go the same way?
Yeah, I think I'd probably take the illegal portage and gain 2 minutes on him that way. That'd probably help us out a bit. But No, I think honestly, I don't think it was a bad strategy. Just try and get out in front and
Yeah.
try and keep it behind you. I think it probably basically we needed to have our best moment of the race right when they passed us. Like that had to be probably the next couple hours had to be our best section, so you don't get dropped and you can just hang on the wave and, try and stick with them late in the race. But I think it probably was, one of our worser sections. That definitely hurt us in the long run. But no, I don't think I'd change too much strategy wise. Just trying to be a little faster when it counts.
Sure. So Wes, you've mentioned a few of the different people that you've raced with more recently and even from towards when you started, but maybe talk to us a bit about some of your different racing partners you've had over the years, and maybe focus more on what are some of the attributes that those people brought to the table to make them a good partner for you.
Yeah, so I'd say it's definitely hard to talk about past racing partners without mentioning Danny Paddle. He was probably the first person I had paddled with where we were like both like pretty darn serious about it.
Yeah.
We to be honest, like we were not very good or not very skilled, but we definitely like worked super hard at it. So I think probably learned a little bit about like grit and toughness from just paddling with Danny. Funny little story about paddling with him was back in 2011. It was actually my second ever canoe race in like actual canoe racing, not the aluminum stuff.
Yeah.
And we were in the Expert 2 amateur division in Onaway. We were like 16, 17 maybe at the time. And there's a very long portage in that race. I think is, I don't know, maybe about a half mile or so, but it was gravel. And we had tipped in the race and we both lost our shoes.
Oh my God.
So yeah, we have to, on the way back, we have to do that portage. And we're in the amateur division and we're in like 4th out of 5th or something, or 4th out of 6th. And we're like, we got to run this portage barefoot. Like it's gonna suck, but like we got to do it because the other boat was just like, I don't know, it was like a minute or two up there. So we ran that whole portage barefoot. It was hurt really bad. It was terrible, but we ended up passing a boat at like right at the end. So I just thought it was a funny little story. It's an amateur division race. Doesn't really matter too much, in the grand scheme of things. But that was kind of like the representative of like the grit and toughness and whatnot.
Awesome.
So yeah, definitely paddling with Danny was fun. And then I honestly think like I've been pretty lucky with all my partners. Seems like, pretty much everybody's been on the same page as far as, like training and stuff and, taking it seriously. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think you just gotta, be smart about selecting and try and get somebody who's on the same page as you, has the same goals.
Yeah. So Wes, one thing I always like to bring up, just because I think it's just goes hand in hand with endurance sports, but certainly in the paddling world, but the mental aspect of training and racing. I mean, I think it's near impossible to do well in the sport of canoe racing without being mentally tough. But talk to us a bit about that. Like, what are some of the different things that you do that help you mentally throughout some of these longer races?
Yeah, so that was probably like one of the toughest aspects for me for a pretty long time. It's something I feel like I've kind of got it down now, but at the start, like I'll fully admit I did not. It's something I think you kind of learn with time a little bit, but I would say kind of the turning point for me was in 2017 in the marathon. I was paddling with Jason Hatfield. We were doing pretty solid. I think we were like 7th or 8th place coming into Mayo Dam, and it would have been, first top 10 for me. So, it was a pretty good race at that point. And we were probably about 5 minutes or so from Mayo Dam. and Jason had a foot brace break.
Oh, jeez.
I can't remember exactly what went wrong with it, but it busted, and I just remember he was like, we got a problem, and we had to pull over at Myo Dam and try and fix it, and it probably took like a good 5-6 minutes to get it fixed. And we were just sitting on Myo Dam watching teams go by that we had leads on, and it was like super frustrating. And it was like total nail in the coffin for me, like mentally. Like at that point, I was just like, so mad, so mentally defeated.
Yeah.
And basically the rest of the race just was done, mentally, physically. And we kind of didn't really have a good rest of the race from that point. I think we finished like 17th or so, but it was like definitely a huge, like, learning point for me. It in a race that's like 16 hours long, stuff can go wrong, and you just kind of got to be able to adapt and kind of go with the flow a little bit. So from that point on, definitely, I've tried to like focus on it and make it a priority. Because I mean, you're right, you can't really like have too much success without it. And it's, it's not just in the races itself. It takes a lot of mental toughness, like training wise, week in, week out, to like work pretty hard. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I did anything, too specific really, but I guess just try to be aware of it and really focus on it.
Coming from triathlon, one thing in some of the longer triathlons that I've done that I have taken to my paddling is trying to think about some of the things that can go wrong, and trying to have a plan ahead of time. Do you do any of that? Like, if this goes wrong, then we'll troubleshoot in this way, or do you just kind of take it as it comes and control what you can? Yeah, go ahead.
I think I probably just try and take it as it comes, and before the race, just kind of like, tell yourself like some bad stuff might happen out there.
Right.
You might get sick at some point, but that's all, it's all just part of it, and just, try and grit your teeth and just keep going.
Yeah. Awesome. So Wes, when I see you paddle, I certainly think of you as having good technique. I think that's another piece, to the puzzle of all of you guys that do well in the sport. Do you think that there were some things that you changed from when you started to where you are now, or was it just eventually you figured it out by how did you go about, developing your proper technique with your paddle stroke and some of the other things you do technique wise?
Yeah. So things have changed, I'd say pretty much everything.
Okay.
I'd say like my stroke now is definitely like totally different than it ever was,
Okay.
back in the day. But I would say, it's definitely easy if like you come from a paddling family and you have, people to teach you early on.
Sure.
But I don't really think I had like a bunch of people kind of teaching me form and stuff. I'd say I kind of, in some ways, I guess I'm kind of like a little bit self-taught.
Yeah.
And I'd say the best way I learned was probably just honestly watching YouTube videos of other people paddle.
Right.
And everyone's got like a little different stroke, just
Mm-hmm.
based on their body and stuff.
Right.
But there's definitely like some common stuff that everybody who's fast, does. And that's, it's like the obvious stuff: reaching forward, putting most of the power on the front of the stroke, using your whole body.
Mm-hmm.
And those are probably, anybody could do good focusing on just those three things.
Sure.
But I don't know, it is kind of tough to put into words. I think it's like very much a feel thing.
Sure.
I would say one thing I do try and focus on a lot is just like trying to make the boat feel easy. Like you can definitely like paddle hard and maybe go a little bit faster, but you can tell when you're losing efficiency and stuff. There's definitely like diminishing returns with like the harder you paddle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say all those all those good teams, especially in the marathon, they find a way to, go pretty fast without actually like putting too much energy in.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the big keys. You can definitely look at people and tell when, like, they're paddling really hard. And then you see a boat that just looks super smooth, and then it looks like they're not even putting that much effort in. And that's just all technique for sure.
Sure. Oh, well, thanks for sharing that. Wes, I always like to talk a little bit about equipment too. What do you have strong opinions about certain boats or certain paddles or any of the other pieces of technology or equipment that's used in the sport?
Yeah, so paddles, seems like pretty much everybody is using ZRE. I know there was zone paddles at one point, and there's Lavasse, but you don't really see too much of those anymore. But it seems like it's mostly ZRE. And I would say lengthwise, that's probably like the most debated thing. Personally, I like to use a 49-inch paddle. I'm about 6'3", to give you some reference.
Sure.
I kind of like a shorter paddle. I think it kind of helps you with the turnover and keep the stroke rate up.
Okay.
But it just depends on who you ask, because there's other fast people who use like 50 or 50 and a half. So I think as far as that goes, I think you just kind of got to go with what feels comfortable. But boats, for the longest time, I was a Corbin guy, and I guess I still kind of am. Every marathon I had done to that point had been, or up till this year, had been in a 95 Corbin.
Yep.
So I was like the biggest proponent of it. I'd always say, like, that's the only boat I want to race. And going into this year, me and Weston were planning on racing that boat. It just, like, we were paddling it and we were doing all right, but I think we were definitely losing a little bit of efficiency in it, because it's a very unforgiving boat. You really have to be on your game. So I just feel like it was, we weren't really like at our full potential in it. So then we ended up, just trying a JD2 one day in a practice run. And for us, it was like night and day difference. Like, first time we paddled it, we were like, this is the boat we're going to race. Just felt like so much more stable, so much less wobbly, and on the upper Ausable, it was just so much better for us, because you're constantly shifting your weight, pulling, drawing, changing the way you paddle. And I think the JD2 is just like really forgiving for that, because it has so much stability.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you lose too much speed with it. Maybe just like a tiny bit top end, but really, you're not really paddling at top end that often, and certainly not in the marathon. But even MCRA races, you're not sprinting the whole time. So I think I like the JD2 a lot. I actually just ordered to do one, so I'll be paddling that, at least the next couple of years. And
awesome.
I think it's a good boat for not only top teams, but I think, like, any middle of the pack team, I think could do really good in a JD2 or a JD3.
Yeah, cool.
And I'm not getting any money to say that. That's just my honest opinion.
Yeah, well, I definitely, it was a unique year for boats, and that seems like that was the first time, ever really, that there was that many, JDs up towards the front. So that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, it was definitely the year of the JD Pro 2. And Jordan and Matt kind of had the same exact experience. Like, I think they probably started out in a Corbin, and I know at some point they switched over to JD2, and it was just a lot better for them. So yeah, I think the Corbin, don't get me wrong, I do think it's an awesome boat. I think it's just a little bit more finicky. Like, you really got to be on your game.
Sure.
And I do kind of think it benefits. It's a little bit better for lighter teams. Sure. I'm a pretty big guy, and if I have a bigger sternman, it just might not be the boat for me sometimes.
Right. So Wes, the paddling community as a whole, I think is very, welcoming, and but it is kind of a smaller community than maybe some other endurance sports or just sports in general. What are some things that you think that we could do as an overall group to maybe have more people join the sport?
Well, that's kind of the $1 million question,
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I do think there's a kind of a lot working against paddling to make it, like a super common sport.
Yeah.
One is obviously the cost. Equipment costs a lot of money. Everybody knows that.
Right.
And there's a pretty steep learning curve in it. Not a lot of people are like good right off the start. And I think that kind of discourages a lot of the younger people getting into it. Because, no 19-year-old people want to sign up and get, beat by people in their 60s. It's just
Right.
kind of can be a tough pill to swallow.
Sure.
So that's kind of tough, but I don't know. I would say it's definitely good to have youth races at these MTRA races.
Mhm.
I know on the last episode, Carson was talking about maybe getting something going with like high school teams.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
But I think another way to grow the sport would be just kind of keep promoting the Ausable River Canoe Marathon in, obviously all the races, but I think that's kind of a race that like attracts a lot of people into it.
That's what
They
won
come and
me
watch them.
over.
Yeah, 100%, right? And I think that's a common story. Like people come and watch the marathon, and then they're like, "Wow, like that was like pretty awesome. I think I want to
Right.
like try this." And
Absolutely.
so I honestly think the more you grow that, the more people you're going to get involved. And then I would say keep kind of pushing like the regionality of the sport. Back when I started, there was not that many Texans, coming to race the
Right.
marathon, and now, I think there was like 20 or 30 paddlers from Texas, and then obviously, we didn't have any Canadians this year, but normally there's like 20 or 30 people coming from there. So I don't know. It seems like people come and they have a good experience there, and then they go back to wherever they're from, and they tell people about it, and the next thing you know, there's more people. So like, who knows where the next spot's going to be? I know there's paddlers in like out in Minnesota, and there's paddlers out east. So hopefully it just continues to grow like it has over the past decade.
Sure. Wes, do you have some definitive goals for next year that you've kind of established yet?
Yeah, I think obviously, like, anybody who's kind of competing in the top 5 or top 3 or whatever, wants to win marathon or triple crown. So
Sure.
that's definitely one of my goals. And then other than that, I would say just kind of try and be like year in, year out, podium finisher at those races. So it's kind of one thing to do it one time, and then it's another thing to just consistently be there. So that's definitely one of my goals. And of course, just keep having fun with it and keep enjoying it.
Do you plan to do either of the Triple Crown races outside of the marathon this year?
I'm hoping to. I'm definitely going to do New York in the
Okay.
marathon. Hoping to do Classique. We'll just, kind of see how it shakes out with vacation time. But
Right.
like I said, I've never done all 3 of them in one year. So, hopefully this is the year.
Okay.
What about you? Are you doing them?
It's just for me still, still kind of dabbling in triathlon a bit. Is just hard to commit the entire year for me to any of those other races. But someday I would like to, for sure.
Yeah. You just found out you got into the Ironman in Hawaii, right?
Yeah. Yep. It was a few weeks ago. So yeah, so that'll be the second half of the year. Once the marathon's done, I'll be switching gears and pretty much focused all on triathlon until October. So
Nice. That's exciting, man. Congrats.
yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, it'll pretty challenging, just quite a different environment than, you know, the moderate weather that we get here in northern Michigan. But
I'm sure.
Get ready for some heat for sure.
Hey, I was hoping my first triathlon that I did, that one you put on in Gaylord, I was hoping it was going to go a little bit better, but I think next year, I think I'm going to skip out on the swim portion.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed having you guys there. I'd love to see you again. Yeah. And whether it's with the swim or, certainly the paddling portion, you would kick butt. So
yeah, I think that's a little bit more my cup of tea.
Yeah, the swims, if you didn't grow up swimming at all, it's it can take a lot out of you, but it is, I think it's pretty good exercise and some pretty good crossover with paddling as far as using some similar muscles, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So Wes, lastly, you know, I just always want to give the opportunity if there's anyone else you'd like to mention or any sponsors that you've had, you know, recently or over the years that you'd like to mention, this would be a good opportunity for that.
Yeah, so definitely my parents, you know, they've definitely supported me since 2011 through it all. And
yeah.
I know they have a ton of fun watching me do it. So, you know, it's part of the reason it's so much fun competing is because I know they love watching me.
Yeah.
Another person I'll mention is Jim Humes, owner of Penrod's.
Okay.
As everybody knows, you know, we get to do the time trials there, and also just, you know, very kind, like people park there at Penrod's, you know, pretty much all summer for training sessions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he definitely, you know, deserves more credit than he gets. So definitely want to give a shout out to Jim. And then I don't have a list of sponsors in front of me, and I'm you know, just going off the top, I'll definitely forget some. So
that's all right.
I think I'll skip out there.
Okay. Well, Wes, thanks a lot for your time. You know, I certainly enjoyed this, and I know people listening will as well. So we'll have to get together here sometime this spring and get a paddle, and that'd be fun.
Absolutely. Let me know. I got out with your partners. Now I got to get out with you.
Yeah, perfect. All right, Wes, thanks a lot. Have a great night.
Yep, no problem.
Take care.